All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. It's going to be a great episode. We got Jacob Prash. Jacob, you are undisclosed location somewhere in the Midwest. How you doing today?
Midwest. I'm in Texas, a Lone Star State, and I'm doing well in Jesus. Was a rather unexpected kind of trip to Texas. I was planning on coming here, and I was on my way here, and the phone rang in New York, if you don't know, and David Lister notified me that the person I was coming to see was killed in a plane crash the previous day with his brother. And I was coming down to do some Bible studies and have a Texas barbecue. And instead, when I got there, I found myself standing next to his remains, delivering a eulogy at his funeral for him and his brother. It was just totally unexpected. Not what I anticipated, not what David anticipated, but that's what happened. It's been a bit difficult, but nonetheless, the work of the Lord must go on. The show must go on, if you want to put it that way. Not that I'm making light of the work of the Lord, but we are in Texas now, and we shall be in Texas and elsewhere. David Lister will outline the itinerary.
No problem. We just want to introduce everybody. Texas Two-Step. David Lister, how are you today?
I am doing really well. I'm just in the next room over from Jacob, where we're going to spend a couple nights here and host some meetings. We hear that people are coming from all over the U.S. A lady we met today, so we're excited that people are so hungry and they're going to come down to the free state of Texas.
Free state of Texas. My original home state. So I hope you guys are doing well. And we'll come back to you for some of those dates. Jay, originally from Texas as well. How you doing, Jay?
Well, I came from California, and I've come to the free state of Texas as well. And I can't wait to see everybody at the events coming up in Mexia and Grossback. Grossback, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, blessed are you, brother. God bless you. And down in Victoria, would you call it a free state, Davey? I don't know. Would you call it a free state?
We got rid of Andrews, but it's still not real free.
Yeah.
We've got so many things looming on us at the moment, but it's good to be here with you guys.
Yeah, God bless you, Davey. Good morning on a Saturday morning, and good morning to all those who are there. And welcome in the name of the Lord. Those who are watching, those who will watch later. It is Friday noon here, just about 12:30, and everywhere else is afternoon except or evening or the next day, except in Hawaii. So good morning to those who are in Hawaii. David, can you go through the itinerary real quick, just to let everybody know where Jacob's going to be?
Okay, on February 10th at 6 p.m., Jacob's going to be at Mary Helen Nance Community Center in Texas. We have the details and the address on there, and that will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We've had so many inquiries that they've moved us to a bigger place. Then on the 11th, we're in Mexia at Creekside Christian Retreat, and we have a 10 o'clock to a noon meeting there on that Sunday. And then Jacob will be going back to Fort Donaldson, aka Dover, Tennessee, where he'll be going online, and you can get that via Zoom on February 18th at 10:45 Central Standard Time on the 18th. Also, we have an event on the 17th, but I don't have that, and that's in Nashville. But anyway, then following that, we're going to Crystal River, Florida, and we have the address there at the Plantation Resort, okay? And that will be at 10 o'clock to noon on the 25th. Then as we move into March, Jacob will be going down to Florida Atlantic University in the Davy West building, room 103, from 1 to 3. So we have a meeting in Southern Florida. Now, in between, we got a couple private meetings that's just invitation only, so in Southern Florida. And then next, Jacob goes out to your place on the 9th and 10th of March in Devore for meetings from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock on the Saturday, and then regular meeting times on the 10th at Devore. Then Jacob goes back home for a bit, and in England.
New York first, and Baltimore again.
Oh yeah, that one didn't get put up. The that will be the 20. So we'll get that back up. It's Jacob, okay. And then you were over in April. We've got some other things you can go through for down at and then Jacob will be coming back into America to visit the Open Door in New York on April 20th and the 21st. And then he goes back out to Devore for one weekend, one speaking session, and then he goes heading over to Maui for Grace Church, and then after that he goes to New Zealand, then he goes into Australia, and then to Bangkok with me, where I'll catch up and we'll visit the several prisons that we have there and some other dates. But we'll get all these dates soon. We'll get New Zealand New Zealand up, and then we'll get the dates soon for Australia.
All that information.
Jacob has got a heavy schedule, folks.
Yeah, all that information, moriel.org, as it gets posted. But at least for now, the meetings in Texas, Florida, and California, of course, those are the next few ones. And he's got a trip internationally going out by this spring. So God bless you, Jacob. Hope you do well. Thank you, David, so much for that information. And want to remind everybody, if you want to catch up with Jacob, no pun intended on the show, on the episode here, but also you can visit moriel.org, and a lot of information on missions and a lot of things that Moriel does outside of the Moriel TV side, which is a great deal of stuff. And I appreciate you guys going there, praying for those missions, praying for the work of the Lord that goes on. And as Jacob said, the work of the kingdom goes on despite the difficulties we face. And we just want to encourage everybody not only to pray for Jacob and put him in your prayers, enjoy the meetings, watch the episodes, share them, including podcasts. Jacob's on podcasts on several different platforms. Jake, can you help me out with that? The platforms you have them, I think you have them memorized, but I know we're on Google, we're on Amazon, we're on iTunes. What else am I missing?
iTunes, Podchasers. We also have a few more. We have Spotify, of course. Yes. So those are our current places where you can catch our podcasts to download. Obviously, the best one and most obvious one is Apple, especially if you have an Apple device. And if you have an Android device, Amazon is a great resource to download our podcasts.
Very good. Okay, that's good to know. So we cover both bases, both the Android folks and the Apple folks, right? So that's where it's at. And so we encourage everyone to watch the videos and the platforms and different ones. Moriel TV, morieltv.org, of course, our flagships, YouTube, Rumble, they do very well. We're on Facebook Live right now. We're also on Vimeo. We're also on Telegram. And of course, if you want to ask questions for Jacob, put them on Rumble. And we're going to be taking those questions on our Backstage part of the episode, which occurs at the end. So we're going to go through all these different topics. Then we get into the Backstage, and we're going to ask Jacob some questions, and that'll be a lot of fun. So let's enjoy the episode. It's a lot of fun to do them. What are we up to now? 167, DJ? I lose count.
168.
168. I'm behind one.
168.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So they're all there. So talk about things that we talked about almost 2 years ago, whether they came to pass or not. We're not prophets, but a lot of things we said have come to pass. And some of them, the ones that we're going to talk about today, we talk about China for quite a long time. And boy, things are heating up, not in a good way, I suppose. So let's get caught up, everyone. And the first thing we want to talk about, Jacob, is the first American journalist to interview Vladimir Putin since the Ukraine invasion. 142 million views, 7 million on YouTube, 142 on Twitter, or X that they call it now, not counting anything on the Tucker network. This is bigger than the Super Bowl. It nearly broke the internet. It had more views than any interview he's ever done or anyone has ever done. And It is obviously is going to go much higher. Legacy media is on panic mode. They're rolling out Hillary Clinton now to try to depose anything that Tucker says and try to make him into, I guess, a dog, a lap dog. But incredible stuff. I watched it. The first 30 minutes was about history and everything else. Fascinating stuff. Jacob Prasch, your take on the interview and the whole aspect of it.
First of all, he was talking to his Russian viewership as much as he was to the American and Western viewership. He was certainly blowing his own horn among his own people, trying to put a spin on the events taking place in Russia, as well as Russia's position in the international community. So he was not just speaking to the Americans, he was speaking to his own people. He obviously had his own script. At various points, he would not even answer the exact questions, precise questions asked by Tucker Carlson. He would simply continue with his own prescripted monologue, basically, or he would take the questions and he would not really rephrase them, but redirect them to continue again his own diatribes against the West, against America, and against the Democrats. I have several observations concerning it, though. My first is that he was critical of the Democratic Party. And we can bet that the Democratic Party and the mainstream media are going to try to resurrect the false narrative they had the last time about collusion. They're going to say, see, he doesn't like Biden, he doesn't like the Democratic Party, he's collaborating with Trump. They're going to try to say that again. Now, they were caught lying the last time about the Steele dossier. Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, nobody was indicted over presenting a false dossier to the FBI. People like Comey were never indicted. People like Page and people like McCabe and people like in the intelligence community who backed it, like obviously Clapper and Brenner were not brought to accounts. Either was struck, and if anybody should have been faced an indictment, it would have been struck, in my opinion. They're going to try to resurrect a version of this if they can, and try to say, look, listen to what he's saying. He's against the Democrats. He wants Trump to win. There's a collusion with the Republicans. There's a collusion with Trump. They're going to try to resurrect that if they can. That's what they'll attempt to do. The second observation I have is the lack of comprehensive response of the questions he was answering. For instance, he was trying to say that Russia has the fifth biggest economy in the world in terms of PPP. PPP is purchasing power. It's not the same as gross national product, and it's not the same as gross domestic product. It's something else. How much can you buy with your money? And he was saying China can buy the most. Of course, what he was not saying is that you can buy a lot more. A kilo of rice is going to cost a lot less in Nigeria or Pakistan than a kilo of rice is going to cost in California or in England. He wasn't making that kind of comparison. He was just saying the PPP is bigger, but he wasn't telling you that although you can buy more with the same amount of money in China, that the average wage in China is about $12,000 or $12,500 a year. Well, you can buy more with that amount of money, but it's a lot less money. The other thing he was not being honest about, or he was packaging his response to avoid the reality, is that China's PPP has gotten so big so fast because China is in a state of deflation. Now, deflation is as dangerous as hyperinflation. Deflation, prices indeed do come down, and you get a lot more for your money, but the people who have to produce things are getting a lot less. They're paying the same price for raw materials and so forth, but they're selling them at a lower price. Deflation is as deadly as hyperinflation. So he wasn't giving the reasons for China's PPP. He was just stating certain facts non-inclusively or non-comprehensively. He was only highlighting certain aspects that he wanted people to buy into. And there are people who will do that. They won't understand what the PPP really means, or they won't link the high PPP in China to the low wages or to the deflation. So he was not really honest in a lot of his responses. One of the things that I would say deserves some credence, or at least should be listened to, is something that many Western economists, including American economists, are saying. By weaponizing the dollar and the SWIFT system, it is pushing people away from the dollar into things like BRICS and to alternatives. Now, again, here, he was only telling half the story. He wanted the ruble at one point to replace the dollar. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Ruble is now worth about a penny, or just a little over 1 US cent. There were people who wanted to replace the dollar as the world currency reserve anyway, but by the sanctions on Russia, but by freezing Russian assets, and by closing Russia out of the currency system, it was had an effect of giving further motivation to other nations going into BRICS, saying, look, the Americans can freeze our assets, they can freeze our accounts.
Absolutely.
They can
Dangerous.
pull us off out of, so we need an alternative to protect ourselves. Now, again, these countries, particularly Russia and Iran and China, wanted to replace the dollar anyway. But by doing what we did, the question is, are we giving them, or are we putting fuel on a fire that already exists that we'd like to contain? So I would say that that aspect of his remarks in the interview need to be considered. They need to be given serious economic consideration. But of course, the Biden administration does not have either the intelligence or the ability to do that. You're dealing with not just this, I used to say that Joe Biden was a half senile corruptocrat. I no longer have that opinion. I must recant the view that he's a half senile corruptocrat. He's just a senile corruptocrat. The man is not in control of his faculties.
No, have you seen, I mean, do you see the last one? He's calling, was it El Sisi, the president of Mexico, shutting the border?
Calling El Sisi the president of Mexico. He's what he's talking about.
He said if he met Francois Mitterrand,
he's out of it.
He's been dead for years. He said he met him the other day. I don't mean to laugh at older people that are losing it.
He is not he's not half senile. He's just senile.
Mm. Can you imagine giving him a 2-hour interview? I mean, Putin did it, pretty seamlessly. I couldn't see Biden doing 5 minutes like that.
Oh, I couldn't. Not only that, but when Trump had been president, they were trying to say that he was mentally unstable and that he was showing incipient, or at least a nascent tendency towards Alzheimer's. The left said that. Yeah. Now you have a president who conspicuously is into geriatric mental deficiency. He's into geriatric cerebral deficiency. Okay, it's obvious, and they're not wanting to say it, but now at last they have begun to admit it because they have no choice.
They have no choice. That's right.
They're going to have to push them out and get someone else.
His view of history, Putin's view of history is really interesting. Going back to the year 1000, going back to, the year 800, and in the 1862 is when they celebrated 1,000 years of Russia. And his view of history is quite different than the West, isn't it? Because he looks at it with a lot more, maybe nostalgia, maybe respect that a lot of people do in the West. Here, we're trying to destroy our history, no matter what it was. We're trying to destroy and take down statues. We don't know who we are and what who we are and what we're doing, because we were founded on Judeo-Christian values. We don't want those anymore. Putin's a little bit different. He goes back into history, looks at Russia in its place, and has a different perspective.
He at least takes the moral values of the Russian Orthodox Church concerning homosexuality.
Yeah.
So he's morally superior to Biden. So is a whore on a street corner, but he's morally superior to Biden, obviously. That is his strength. Righteousness exalts a nation, and
That's
we're
right.
facing
That's right.
this situation because of Joe Obama, and the left particularly. But not only, there's rhinos are no better, and no different. But there is that. He also understands Peter the Great and the significance of Peter the Great, who extended the Russian Empire from Europe all the way to the Pacific, and at one time included Alaska.
That's
When
right.
the sale of Alaska, Secretary of State Seward bought it. He had been Secretary of State under Abraham Lincoln, and he acquired Alaska. So he understands the significance of Peter the Great. He understands the significance of Catherine the Great.
Catherine the Great. That's right.
Catherine the Great gave refuge to the Mennonites who were being persecuted for their faith by both the Roman Catholic Church and much of Protestantism were persecuting them because they were Anabaptists.
They were reformers. That's right.
And she had become the lover of the Scottish-born American Admiral John Paul Jones, had been her boyfriend. He understood that there was this friendship between the United States and Russia that was interrupted, that went back certainly to the time of John Paul Jones, but also during the American Civil War. It was Disraeli, basically, who kept Britain from entering the Civil War on the side of the South. He was a Jewish Christian. He was against slavery and so forth. And he realized Britain could get cotton from Egypt. He didn't have to get it from the American South anymore. Disraeli did a lot to keep Britain out of the war. But there were financial and industrial interests in Britain, particularly in the north of England, in the textile industries. They wanted Britain to enter the war from Canada on the side of the South, while Russia was pro-Lincoln. Russia was pro-Lincoln. Now, they were pro-Lincoln for their own reasons. Britain and Russia were rivals in Crimea and all this stuff. Those things happened in the same general time period, with the charge of the Light Brigade. I'm not saying Russia was pro-Lincoln for necessarily altruistic reasons, but there was a history of friendship between the United States and Russia always. Right. And what ended it, of course, the hiatus, was communism.
Yeah, the Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah, but the Bolsheviks were just, they were as cruel as the Tsars and worse.
That's
they
right.
were as cruel as the Tsars and worse. And he leaves that out of his interpretation of and recount of Russian history. He leaves that out.
Yeah.
He had been a KGB agent. He left out the crimes of Stalin and the failure of communism. He did not highlight that in his presentation and in his recount of Russian history. Again, he is a revisionist. He rewrites the history to suit himself, not by adding things, but by leaving things out. He was very selective as to what he included. Now, the things he included were right, were largely right. I don't think he said much that wasn't true. It's what he failed to say in his historical presentation that left much to be desired. But again, he's a politician, and he was speaking for his own people.
Or his own country. That's right. That's right. David, listen, why so much interest on it, do you think? Why so much? 147 million? I mean, is this kind of go on and on? What do you think there's so much interest in that?
Well, the interest is because we have a failing presidency, and people are starting to see through that. People are wanting to actually hear something that is not filtered and made for them by the bought and paid for media. And this is an interesting character, and we're at war with Ukraine and Russia in kind of a Cold War type fashion. And so people are interested in what's going on in this world. And we have other people, Joe Rogan and all these guys, are starting to have an effect that we're seeing a switch from the establishment media into more media that is telling the truth via the internet. Things like us, people like us that can get out there and tell you this is what we believe. And so the internet is freeing people to find information that is being blocked. You know,
Yeah.
they can't control it. And more so, I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk, but look, I am thankful he bought Twitter and is allowing a lot of this to come out. And
Yeah.
also right now we know that in fact that the establishment media is being decimated with layoffs.
Mm.
They were bought and paid for by the CIA and for COVID, for
Yeah.
all these other things. And so now we see that they're getting theirs. Hillary Clinton talked about useful idiots, calling Tucker a useful idiot. But it's the news media that are the useful idiots that the establishment is now getting rid of with massive layoffs.
Let's
So,
talk about that for a moment, because they roll out Hillary. They roll
Yep.
out Hillary as an attempt to try to smear Tucker Carlton as some kind of Putin apologist or something like that. If by all means they're rolling out Clinton, Jacob, they're desperate, aren't they?
yep.
You know, if you're going to roll out Clinton, her electoral prowess is she's about as electable as the Bride of Frankenstein. They've got a problem. Nobody believes Hillary Clinton would have a chance of being elected president. She was solidly rejected by the voters when she ran against Trump, solidly. And she's not going to win now. Secondly, Kamala Harris. Nobody takes that woman seriously. The Democrats know she would not be a viable candidate. Now, normally, in the normal course of events, if the president is not capable of running again, and don't forget, now there's some Republicans are saying, should the 25th Amendment not be invoked concerning Biden, because he's not compos mentis, even according to a Democrat federal prosecutor. Nobody believes that Harris is a viable candidate. Nobody believes that Hillary Clinton is. They're looking for somebody. They are looking for somebody. Maybe they'll get Michelle Obama, hoping that enough liberal Democrats will vote for her, because they're stupid people who will do what they're told. They are the useful idiots, people who will vote for somebody like her. But they know that they're in trouble now. They don't have a candidate. They would have hoped at one time Gavin Newsom. I don't know what his prospects are, but they're not as strong as they should be if he was really going to make a play. He's not that strong politically at the moment, and it would be very difficult for him to catch up once his name has not been on the ballots in the primaries that have already taken place.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So they don't. So now that we're into the primary season, they don't really have anybody. I don't think that Robert Kennedy, whose family name is an icon among the Democrats, is going to hurt Biden as much as I would have liked, or hurt the Democrat Party as much as I would have liked. But I do think he will hurt them. I do think he will hurt them somewhat.
Well, the Justice Department just came after Kennedy, saying he's running an illegal PAC, political action committee, and so they are worried about him, Jacob.
Well, they politicize the Justice Department and the IRS, and they won't just go after Republicans. They'll go after other Democrats.
Yeah, there's the Democrats don't have a depth chart of people. I mean, they don't. They're definitely in trouble that there's not someone. If they're rolling out Hillary to maybe bring our presence up and to get rid of them, they're in trouble.
I got some Hillary stuff here. Okay, so she's a proponent of the Russian collusion. Keeps going on it. She keeps going on it. She sold 20% of the uranium to Russia. There's been research for that. Her husband Bill received $1.5 million for a speech that he did in Moscow back in 2014 or 2013. So 40 minutes. Yeah. And plus the Epstein list. So now she comes out and attacks, but she's not the only one. Of course, now they're calling for the arrest of Tucker. Jacob, Espionage Act 1917. You can't share information with another country that is going to the intent to harm the U.S. in any sort of way.
But of course, Biden did, and of course, Clinton did.
Yeah, well, they do this. I mean, freedom of the press, right? Espionage Act 1917. Why are they going after him so hard on this?
Because he's being effective. And also, listen, Mike Wallace, and there's been a dozen people that have interviewed him, American reporters. So why now and why Tucker?
Correct. There's always two standards.
Yeah, the legacy media is dying. Independent journalism's growing. You know, some people are calling for he's on the kill list now because of
mainstream media is fighting for its economic survival long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
This may be the last presidential election where they will pack a significant amount of punch. This may actually be the last presidential election where the mainstream media will pack the punch it always has.
I hope
that's
not.
Interesting. Yeah,
I hope not.
I'm wondering, Jacob, if they even do have a punch, because we're seeing that all the medias are going down by percentage after percentage after percentage.
Yes.
And it's
well, that is another factor. Don't forget, the mainstream media is the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party.
That's right. Yeah.
Paid for.
The Clinton News Network, CNN, or the New York Slimes of the Washington Compost. That's what they are. Their circulation, their economic viability, even their internet hits, even the amount of people going to their websites is declining very significantly with most of them.
Very.
All of them, but some of them are really declining. The Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, they're getting butchered on the internet. So their old platforms are declining circulation and declining viewership. But the new platforms, which is internet, they're declining there too. They're fighting for their survival. Hence, the Democratic Party is losing its mouthpiece. It would be like the Soviets losing Pravda and Izvestia.
Yeah, they're losing it. I mean, I was talking to Jay. We don't know anybody in our age group that really has cable or watches cable. Most people younger than me, it's either on YouTube. Yeah,
either the hotel or something and watching the news. I don't watch it.
Yeah,
especially pay for garbage.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting, Marco. I believe the LA Times closed their whole Washington bureau. How are they going to repair it on politics when they don't have reporters there?
Yeah,
and borrow from another freelance guy, pay him
exactly.
1/3 of the money.
And I was talking to Jay about this. Jay, you can mention this. Thinking of like guys like James O'Keefe. Think of guys like Elon Musk. Think of guys like Tucker Carlson. Think of guys like Joe Rogan. And these guys among young people, they garner more information. They're able to get into. Not that I agree with all these guys, but they have more reach than the CNN's, Fox, and MSNBC. It's just incredible how independent journalism. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just about to say, like you talk about some of these independent reporters. There's independent reporters not only in Ukraine on the front lines. There's independent reporters at the Darien Gap. They're not associated with any of the big television networks. They're independent people that are looking for the story wherever the story goes. And unfortunately, with the media, they have a narrative that they have to continue to craft. While these people, all they want to get to is the truth.
That's right. That's right. Now, one
even
thing that happened.
Farmer protests are not on the, ABC, CBS.
Yeah, let's talk about that, David, real quick, because the same European Union that is having all these issues with farmers and truckers and in the protest is calling for the arrest and the travel ban of Tucker Carlson. So the EU, with all this trouble, and we're talking about the trouble in a minute, but they're going after him, thinking that he's some kind of enemy of the state, that they're not going to let him in anymore. And so here's another organization, the EU, the European Union, who's going after a person who's telling the truth. I mean, this is what evil governments do. We don't want anybody to know what we're doing. So if you tell the truth, we're going to punish you.
Well, Marco, if I had people coming to my house and throwing manure all over it, I guess I'd be kind of embarrassed about it happening,
Yeah.
And so you see farmers now from Italy, from Spain, from all these countries, they know that their livelihoods are being destroyed. And people don't understand that the legacy of farming, the connection to the land is not like you and me that, we live in a city, okay? And so we're not as connected to the land and to farming. There's something in these people that's different.
That's right.
They want their generation and their legacy passed on to their children, and these people are coming after them. And not only after their jobs, but their way of life and their way of
And their
connection
children.
and their way
That's
of
right.
family.
That's
That's
right.
much deeper, And
Jacob,
so-
you spend time in the UK, Jacob, and you go to the Europe, quite a bit. What do you see that these farmers are just
What you see
going?
with family farmers and ranchers in the United States, there is very much a European version of that. You see it most particularly in France. France is the strongest tradition of it, but it's in Holland, it's in Italy, it's Iberia, it's in other countries, but it's particularly in France and Holland, I would say, are the two most.
Yes, Holland's huge.
Yeah, this attachment to the land and the family heritage, and it's part of their identity, almost quasi-religious with them. It is akin to the American rancher and the American farmer. It is akin to that, except I know families in Britain whose family names are in the Doomsday Book from the Middle Ages.
Wow.
You've got farming families that have been on that same land for 1,000 years. And now
they want to destroy it. Yeah.
Climate change, basically, con artists are coming to dismantle it with bad science, with politically motivated bad science, and complete hypocrisy. Hypocrisy.
Net zero, Green Deal. These are all coming to climate change actions coming from the EU, the UN, and WF. What's going on in the Netherlands is pretty interesting because now you have this coalition that Gerd Wilders have not been able to form. Now you have another coalition that may get it, which is going to put Frans Timmermans, which is the climate pope of the Netherlands, and that is going to unleash bad. That's right. So, Jacob, what's going to happen there? I mean, the farmers are still going in Netherlands. Now they're going to possibly get another guy in there who is completely antithesis of the farmers. It's just going to continue?
I can see it coming to conflict. And I can very easily see it coming to conflict in Eastern Europe.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
The Dutch government wants to cut 30% of the cattle farms. 50% of the Dutch farmers are going to go out of business. 50%. I mean, they provide most of the food to Europe.
That's right. They're big, major food producers. See, don't forget, with the common agriculture, one of the reasons Brexit, one of a number of reasons, Brexit had such political momentum under Nigel Farage in England, is Britain was penalized by the EU for having the most efficient farms in Europe. The common agricultural policy of the EU financially penalized British farmers for being efficient in order to reward ones who weren't. Now, what you might find, because of the socialist influence in the EU bureaucracy, is a European version of something that happened in the United States after the Great Depression. It was initiated to prevent overproduction in agriculture. Federal government would subsidize farmers not to use land or not to
plant corn.
Right. You do not be surprised if the European bureaucracy does not come up with a political compromise that will take taxpayer money or print money, QE money, and give subsidies to farmers not to produce. That is one way they can avoid violent confrontation. And they would do it. They could do anything.
Yeah. I mean, Jacob, there's one guy who was anti-farmer for sure for his own purposes. That was Joseph Stalin. So
absolutely.
You got climate change communism now going after farmland, starving people, which is ultimate.
Remember, 3 times Stalin orchestrated famine against his own people. Most seriously in 1927. if anyone has read the book, The Gulag Archipelago,
Yes.
that book was shocking. That book was, I mean, I always knew Stalin was no good, but that book was absolute by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. That book was absolutely shocking. But now they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I think nobody's read that book. I don't know any younger person that really is interested in that book. Jacob, in that book, they just talked about like whole societies. I mean, whole lot of the people be wiped out. I mean, be killed or starved.
Not only wiped out, but all records that they were ever born were purged. Like no such person ever existed.
It's not a long book. I remember reading it in a couple 3 days. It was
yeah. But I mean, what they did was they had these gulags, these concentration camps with slave labor, where they sent people for all kinds of political crimes or even no crimes. And they put them there, and they used slave labor, and that became like at one point about 25% of the Soviet economy.
Wow.
Was from slave labor dependent on the gulags instead of on farms and on actual production. That's now what a way to get your GDP up, not have to pay anybody any wages.
Yeah, the kulaks. That's what they call them. The kulaks.
Stalin did it to meet export quotas.
Yeah,
he did it to get foreign exchange. He did it to get dollars and British pounds.
Yeah,
incredible. Now the Bible speaks about plenty of times about famines. But especially in the book of Revelation speaks of famines, and Jesus spoke of famines. So as we head toward this future where, social globalism, communism, rejected the climate communism, this is part and parcel of what we see coming up in the future. Where
absolutely, we just on this week's on RTN, on Memorial segment on RTN, this week. We addressed that prophecy in Revelation 6, where it would take a day's wages to buy enough food to feed one person for one day, the denarius. And I talked about when Nixon defaulted on the dollar and Bretton Woods ended, the United States tried to bring in the petrodollar to replace the euro dollar. It was the petrodollar to use oil to give a value to the dollar in lieu of gold. And now that that is over, what is going to be next? How can the English-speaking nations, the United States, Australia, Britain, Canada, how can they keep power? Forget about the petrodollar. What about when you have the agrodollar and you have the aquadollar? When water, because a third of the water is going to be destroyed, when you have water and food shortages, is going to be what gives currency its value. Is that a prophecy in James that gold is a non-oxidizing metal? How can gold rust? But James says it'll be worthless.
Yeah, well, and
because you can't eat it. What now? Ukraine and Russia have the steppes for grain production. That is the breadbasket of Europe, of Eurasia, actually. It's like the American Midwest. They can just produce tons and tons of grain. Okay. But the cornerstone of grain production is the United States, if you include corn, barley, all of it, wheat, the United States, Canada, Australia, and Argentina.
Yes.
If you put those countries together, they can corner the market, especially if there's a war with Russia and the Ukraine and whatever. Okay, they would also be players. But all these other countries, nobody can do what the English-speaking democracies can do.
That's right.
Again, Britain has the most efficient farms in Europe, but in terms of grain production, the only major country outside of the English-speaking nations who can produce on that level, because of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia at the moment, is Argentina and a bit Uruguay, but really Argentina. That is how the United States can move. What they used oil, the petrodollar, to replace the gold after Bretton Woods in 1971. What if they used food? And then ultimately, what if they used water? Water is becoming a major issue in the Middle East.
There's major wars, water wars going on right now.
When Ethiopia builds these dams, and what's already happening in China, putting up
Egypt's
with the Ganges River,
yeah.
and what's happening in Turkey affecting the Fertile Crescent, the Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah, because they're
gonna
gonna
become aqua dollars
yeah.
and petrodollar. That may not be called that, but Revelation 6 persuades me that the basis of world currency reserves, it's not going to be the petroleum anymore. Certainly, it's not going to be gold, even though the BRICS is trying to be gold linked. Ultimately, it's going to be food and possibly water.
Yeah, Turkey wants to build a dam to cut off the Euphrates.
Yes. Yes.
Which is Revelation 9 talks about that.
Yes.
Dry over the Euphrates.
Correct.
Major stuff going on.
Yes.
To Jacob's point about the agrodollar, to Jacob's point about the agrodollar, that is why you're seeing this war on privately owned farms.
Yeah.
The government wants to replace them with mass government institutionalized farming.
Yeah.
Corporate farming. And that's why the WEF is pushing for that. That's why China is taking away century-old family farms from families and putting these massive government-backed agro farms.
Why is Bill Gates the biggest owner of agricultural land in North America now?
That's right.
Because he likes to eat.
Well, this is why the WEF talks about, the stakeholders. It's privatized. And to my, I would add this: it will be technocrats who are going to own this stuff because they want to privatize it. And this is how exactly collectivism came into Russia. They took it away from the private citizens. They gave it to the government, but now it's a different hybrid of it, because here we're going to have it, given to or bought by technocrats that are going to work with the governments to semi-privatize it with stakeholders. This is what Schwab wants, a hybrid.
Marco, when I was younger, and I remember all this collective farming that Russia was doing, it was so successful that it gave me a job here, because I was just getting on grain train after grain train, hauling grain from Iowa, from Illinois down to New Orleans to ship over to those guys, because they were having famines and everything. So, collective farming just doesn't work when they get this and the government gets involved. So, but one of the big things is I just sent a video to you or not a link to a video by a rancher that talked about he makes a very good argument that ranching and the growth of the land and the water and everything is a complete wonderful cycle that actually helps to absorb more carbon dioxide and methane than these cows produce. It's actually something that's really good and fights against the climate change argument. It's a complete, beautiful cycle of how man, animal, and the earth work together to absorb carbon dioxide. And they have the cows are able to keep the grass to the perfect height that absorbs the most amount of carbon dioxide. It's worth a look.
Yeah, we'll look at it, and we might add it to the description for sure. I wanted to. What's that?
Snowfall. Russia cannot have drought. It's meteorologically impossible, providing they have the right reservoir systems and the right irrigation systems. There's so much snow in Russia every year, they can fill their reservoirs. If the economy was run right and infrastructure was managed correctly, they couldn't have a drought. But under the Soviets, they didn't have enough rain for 17 years straight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
California.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, what do you need rain for?
I wanted to switch it real quick because obviously you couldn't explain this to people because they couldn't describe it to you. They couldn't understand it because they were giving false information, false science. People are completely out of touch and out of the loop and being lied to. But you couldn't even explain it to the leaders either. Joe Biden, especially. I wanted to talk about the special counsel, Jacob. Devastating description of Joe Biden, that he is an old man who can't remember anything. I mean, they described him as mentally retarded, and I'm not talking about people that are biologically like that or born like that, but I'm talking about somebody who cannot remember anything. and he has lapses in his memories, what the special counsel said. 345 pages. Robert Hur, who's not a conservative, he's not a Republican either. It hurts Biden, and they came out and said, "No, he's got great memory." Well, it's going to be a big problem because this is under Merrick Garland, he's not going to prosecute him because he can't remember anything.
First of all, we have the corruption. Hillary Clinton was not prosecuted for the same thing that other people were, including Donald Trump. Biden is not prosecuted for the same thing. There's two standards. What you have is a politically weaponized, corrupt justice system, corrupt FBI, corrupt Department of Justice, and a corrupt IRS. It's all corrupt. We know that. It's politicized, it's corrupt, it's not really democracy. But when his own Justice Department says we're not prosecuting him because he is a geriatric case of someone who was non-compos mentis.
That's bad.
Clinically, a geriatric indictee, who we can't indict because he's not compos mentis. We couldn't get a conviction. He couldn't. And he's running for president again.
And he is the president.
He is the president. Yeah.
But I saw stupid people that there had to be of subhuman intelligence, holding placards in New Hampshire, wanting Biden to run again.
Wow.
He's not compos mentis, and they aren't either. But there are actually people that stupid.
He's got classified documents in his garage. I mean, they showed the picture. They released the pictures, but they're not going to recommend anything because he's elderly and has a bad memory.
Oh man,
he doesn't know he's even the president.
Codes. Where did I put them nuclear codes?
What's that, Jay?
Doesn't even know he's the president.
Doesn't know he's the president. Now they're trying to slam Mr. Hur because he's saying it's inflammatory. Can't believe he said that about the president. I don't know. He might be on the kill list too, but now they want the prosecutors to tone down the description of it because his memory is as good as ever, he says. So I don't know. LCC has moved down to Mexico now, Jacob, and he's necromancing with Mediterranean.
That's right.
France.
Well, he was legend. He was legend back when he went into the Senate for his drinking. You know, so it may be true. His memory is as good as then. Yeah, but you know he's because it wasn't good when you're drunk.
Yeah, you know he's weaponized the FBI. He's weaponized all the. You know they're bringing a bigger investigation on J6 than 9/11. I mean it's just
yes.
And then the treason at the border. I mean he doesn't even care. He says it's locked up. I mean I don't know. The bill was dead. They killed the bill, but that was a bipartisan bill to allow 5,000 a day, 5,000 per day. And it didn't include if you move to another port of entry. So this is the Republicans and Democrats working together and it didn't pass, but
yes,
Schumer and McConnell want to make it happen.
I spoke to 2 border agents yesterday in Texas, down at Laredo. I spoke to them. Now, 90%, if not 95% of the border agents, Border Patrol, are Hispanic Americans, those poachers. 95%. And they are vehemently opposed to what's happening. They know the fentanyl's coming in. They know about the human trafficking, and their hands are being tied to stop it. Not to mention narco-terrorists, quite possibly agents of the Chinese government, commandos, military-age people, and certainly radical Muslims. They're trying to increase things like airport security. At the same time, they're letting people come through the fence. It makes no sense what they're doing. And the media tries to show that the Border Patrol, if they try to enforce the law, these are individual agents who are biased or who are against Hispanics, against Latinos. That was one of the things that, they're a racist police force against Hispanics. They're all Hispanics. I spoke to these guys, and they all speak Spanish. And I spoke to one of these guys yesterday morning. I spoke to him in Spanish. And I said to him, look, all of you guys are Hispanic. Yet the mainstream media tries to say that you're against Hispanics. And the guy just laughed and he said, They said it's all ridiculous. And I said, I thought that Mallorca should have been hung. And they couldn't say anything because they were working and they were in uniform. But they say a lot of people should be hung. And they went to rise.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean? The way that they misrepresent Hispanic Americans as when it's to their convenience, they're the same as black people. You know what I mean? When it's not, like with that Zimmerman guy, he was a Hispanic.
He was a police officer.
All of a sudden, the Latino is a gringo. You know what I mean? What most of the Hispanics are, they see it's their neighborhoods who are being hit with the fentanyl and the crime.
That's right.
They're as against it as anybody.
Yeah.
Their sons, their daughters are dying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
all of our sons and daughters are being murdered by fentanyl.
No,
You know, I have always said, of course, coming from New York, we had Puerto Rican friends and all that stuff and things like this, but I've always said, nobody is more quintessentially American than a Hispanic American because their anthropological ancestry is half European and half indigenous. You know what I mean?
Spanish Americans. Yeah.
The Indians and the Spanish, they're half European and half indigenous. They're perfect. Hispanic American is a perfect American because he's a combination of both the Europeans from Los Conquistadores, from the, I don't know how you say it.
The conquistadors,
and the indigenous, call them Indians if you want to.
The natives,
They're a mixture of the two in both North America and South America and Central America. Nobody can be more American than a Hispanic American. And the way they tried to play this race card is absurd.
Yeah. I mean, one of the oldest cities in the United States is in Florida. It was a Spanish city. It was
San Augustine. The oldest city in the United States was founded by Ponce de Leon, who landed in Florida in 1513. St. Augustine, Florida is older than the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. The El Camino Real in California, the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, Jacob, the Denver's having a huge problem because they have 40,000 illegal immigrants that came into the city. They're at a breaking point. They're about to ship them out, but they're a sanctuary city. I don't know what they're going to have a problem with since they asked for this, but it's not even, it's only the first wave. When did they get 400,000 in Denver? Denver's at a breaking point.
They deserve it, and they deserve the crime that comes with it because that's what they voted for.
Did you see that guy in New York who was beating up the cops and then he walked away and he flipped off the camera?
Bragg lets them go. And they're holding up the middle finger to the TV cameras.
Yeah.
When Bragg lets them go.
Unbelievable. Now Denver's in trouble. New York City's in trouble. Even
look, anybody who votes Democrat, if you get knifed by an illegal immigrant, if you're getting ripped off and deprived of social services because they're giving it to illegal immigrants, that's what you voted for. Stop whinging. You wanted it, you got it.
Well, they're getting it now, and even the guy from ESPN was complaining now. Like, how can you let this city go to ruin, destroy Americans, and let illegal aliens come in and give them $53 million is going to go to
credit cards, debit cards.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned that to anybody, like you put that on Twitter, you put that on Facebook. You know what's going to happen? You're to be fact checked.
Oh,
false. Yeah. The U.S. government is not giving 42 million in check cards, even though they are.
Yeah, it's mostly false, right?
It's only a few Pinocchios.
Yeah.
It's not 42, it's 53 million.
Yeah.
And then they report it on their own news people, you know?
They do. But you know what? You don't get, I mean, did you guys, I showed you that clip, right? The 60-minute clip they got TikTok showing Chinese military age men how to get into California.
Yeah, you did. And a lot of stuff happens that way with TikTok. TikTok is not a social media company in the sense that it's not there for, to entertain you.
Oh yeah.
It is a tool of a government, a
Ooh.
hostile government, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, in China, the TikTok programming for the Chinese youth, it's about science, it's about mathematics, it's
Yeah.
about education, things
Manufacturing
like
and,
that. Yeah, things like
jobs,
that.
yes.
You know,
Excellence in jobs.
but they want trash for the Western,
Yeah.
and the government lets it get away with it instead of
And
closing.
gladly take it. Jacob, I want to ask you this. Does it seem troubling to you that Biden mobilized the Alaska National Guard to come and aid the federal troops that they have in Texas against the National Guard of Texas? So you got a federal government weaponizing another state against another state.
Things like that have not transpired since the Civil War.
Oh, man. Well, you heard it here, folks. Jacob said it. The things that we've been warning about for a while.
Well,
One
Jacob,
decision at a time, one grain of sand at a time, one troop at a time, and then you get a war.
Jacob, didn't the president federalize the troops for the Little Rock 8?
Yeah, it was the Eisenhower.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
Eisenhower,
right.
for sure. But
Huh?
but they were not in any kind of conflict with the National Guard of another state.
Right. It
Oh,
was
okay.
it was
I
just in
see what
Arkansas.
you
Yeah,
had
it was
to
just in Arkansas.
clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they installed the razor wire. They want to take it down. Texas puts it back up. Now you got 20. Okay, it's 20 guys, right? It's 20 from Alaska. I'm not saying they're going to make this huge difference, but they're supporting the aviation battalion against the Texas National Guard. So if you had asked me 20, 30 years ago about this, I would have said, there's no way this is going to happen. But boy, it's not slim or chance. It's not slim or none anymore. I think it's one grain of sand at a time. And
Sick of the Republicans who voted for that law.
Oh yeah,
and Langdon co-drafted it.
Yeah, Mike Johnson almost passed it.
Well, he did oppose it though. He said it's dead before.
Yeah, he didn't like it at the end. He didn't like it at the end.
You had 4 Republicans who voted for it.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man. It sounds like
he is retiring, so he doesn't have to worry about re-election.
Oh, I guess re-election.
He can be the scum he always was, I guess. Or the rhino.
No, he's giving favors to the people that are going to be paying him in his retirement. That's how that works.
Doesn't happen in Washington, Jay.
I think I watched that movie. What was it? Mr. What was it? Mr. Goes to Washington.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Great movie if you want to know what happens in the disappointment of it. But no, it's crazy stuff, man. But I would say that what's going on with the banks is probably even more crazier. Watching Jamie Dimon talking about what he needs to give more money to Ukraine. Well, not his money. I guess some of that money went to the Epstein, victims. So that we can't talk about that here. But JP Morgan Chase is opening more banks. 41 banks have failed. 40 local community banks have failed. They're opening more branches. Jacob, are we going to have a 1 or 2 bank institution in the United States?
What they're wanting to do is centralize the banking system, where you will have a handful of banks in cahoots with and in control of the Fed. Yep. Community banks, smaller banks, will be so decimated, very few of them will exist.
Oh man.
Yeah. Regional banks and small banks.
Not only that, but they can change capitalization requirements with the fractional reserve system to make it impossible for them to maintain a legal level of liquidity. So you're going to have to be a major bank to be able to operate.
Oh man.
And the regional banks, Marco, I think I've stated, is that they have too much commercial loan paper and more than even maybe the large banks. So it's dangerous, and it's not good for these banks. Hopefully some of them can survive, but it's if we start seeing a cascading effect over this bad paper, could be bad for our economy.
Yes.
Watch out for that. Yeah. Before we get into that, I want to just, we hit the hour mark. So I just want to make sure when we hit the hour mark, we remind everyone, thank you for watching. You're watching Catching Up with Jacob. Jacob's here. David's here. Davey from Australia is here. Jay and I are here. And we're so happy and so blessed that you guys are watching, not only live, but also you're watching, you'll watch later. Some of those are going to watch later, but we're also on different platforms. The one that we are taking questions on for Backstage is Rumble. So please, if you're on Rumble and if you want to send those questions to Jacob, and we'll be taking those questions after the episode of Catching Up is completed. But we are very happy that you're here with us and learning and understanding what things are going on, because these things are concerning, but we trust in the living God who not only forgives us, redeems us, but he's coming back to bring righteousness and judgment to this earth. And we long for those days. But in the meantime, we preach the gospel, we make disciples. Jacob Prash, Janet Yellen certainly won't let that happen. Would he? Would she? She's for the common people. She's one of us.
First of all, Janet Yellen is a proven imbecile. Look how many times she's said things emphatically, and confidently. And she's basically pontificated and then has admitted she was wrong.
Oh, that the inflation was higher than she thought.
That was certainly true of the quantitative easing. She has no credibility anyway. She had no credibility in the Fed. So you get somebody who's proven incompetent, and you make a Secretary of Treasury.
Wow.
She'll just do what she's told. The woman is a complete joke. But I mean, the only thing serious about her is that she will do whatever she's told. And when the FinCEN, the monitoring system to stop money laundering, that I have to comply with because I live outside the United States part of the year, using that to monitor the political enemies of the Democratic Party.
Mm.
And do you shop at this particular My Pillow or something like this?
Yeah, My Pillow, Mike. Yeah, they're going after Mike.
Shop at some sporting goods store that's pro Second Amendment. They were collecting data on citizens for doing this, but then we find out they were collecting data on people who shop in Christian bookstores and who purchase Bibles.
Purchasing
Bibles. The way we're heading for persecution. She's a wicked, wicked woman. Stupid. I grant you, she's a moron. She's just a political bureaucrat, and she's a moron. She's not a real economist. She's a blithering idiot. I grant you that.
But I mean, she's a useful idiot, much like Biden, but for the people behind her.
Yes, you know, she's a useful idiot. She's a puppet.
They trot her out there. She looks, she's so nice. She looks like a grandmother, wants to bake you some cookies. But boy, she'll stab you in the back, man. She'll let you have it.
Probably laced with those favorite mushrooms of hers, though. That's the only problem.
Man, she's out there, all right. Jacob, let's talk about China for a moment, because we nearly didn't even have China anymore on Tuesday. Nearly trading of 30% of all the stocks in China were halted.
Yes.
So the CSI 1000 index slides 8% in just a few hours. You got the CSI, you got the STAR, they got the Beijing, the Shenzhen, Shanghai Composite, the Hong Kong. They're all sliding very fast on large caps, and it's collapsing. Right before us, they had to halt trading, and now they reinstituted some of the.
They did the same thing in 2016. Remember?
Yeah, you can't short stocks. Yeah, you can't short stocks.
Yes.
You're not allowed to sell, so you got to carry, bad paper money for, I guess, until they can. No AI trading, no placing sell orders, no leverage positions. They're in trouble.
Yes. There are two things that are emblematic, and they cannot be dismissed as just a casual curiosity. They're emblematic. The first is China overtook Japan as the economic dynamo of Asia. That's for sure. When that happened, Shanghai overtook Tokyo as the premier stock market of Asia with the highest amount of equity capitalization. Shanghai was bigger than Tokyo, okay? The market now in Hong Kong is not anything like what it was. The Chinese government has killed the goose that laid the golden eggs. That's Hong Kong. Most of the Western investment into China was coming through Hong Kong. They killed the goose that laid the golden eggs. Hong Kong is not what it was and will not be what it was. Okay, so the Hang Seng, that's Hong Kong. But now something has happened that's drastic. Since the end of 2023, since the beginning of this year, the Tokyo stock exchange, in terms of equity capitalization, is now bigger than Shanghai again.
That's right. That's
They
right.
have lost they are no longer the Wall Street of Asia. They're no longer the City of London of Asia. They've lost it. And Japan has its own problems. It's not that Japan is necessarily doing fantastically. It's doing well in certain sectors, but it's not really doing well fantastically. But it has seen, like Wall Street, it's seen a growth for the time being in its share value. It's the TI in Britain, the Dow Jones in America, the Japanese equivalent. Okay, it's gone up, but it's overtaken China in terms of the capital value of the market. Second thing, for the first time ever since the end of last year, since the last quarter of last year, and so far coming this far into the first quarter of 2024, China is no longer the #1 manufacturing exporter of manufactured goods into the United States. Mexico is.
Whoa.
Mexico is exporting more capital value of manufactured goods into the United States than China is.
That's huge.
Both of those two things are emblematic. They're not curiosities. They're not something that can be dismissed. Neither one of those things would have happened if there was not something systemically deficient in the Chinese economy that they are unable to correct.
Jacob, I got a question. Are you saying that cartels can run an economy better than communists?
Of course, because they're capitalists. They may be corrupt capitalists, but they're capitalists.
Yeah. About 1.1 billion yuans worth of CSI, our snowball products, basically remain.
Those snowball products, oh boy. What a scam.
It is a scam, according to the data provided by their own institution. So
I have a question. So wait a minute. So Mexico is the #1 exporter of manufactured goods. Does that include Chinese citizens into the United States?
Yeah.
You can't ask that question.
They're even
Jay.
exporting
Come on.
Chinese. They're even
They're
exporting Chinese terrorists into the yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna ban us if you ask, if you ask truthful questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I retract my question.
Who are you, James O'Keefe now? Or great stuff. No, I appreciate that. They're in trouble. Well, you got the Evergrande fiasco, right? What was the other one that sounds like a nice
Country market.
Yeah, it's a
Country Garden, which is bigger than the Evergrande stuff. Now they banned. Well, there was a run on the banks last year, late last year, and they literally stopped people, and they were going to shoot them if they went to get their money.
Not only that, they would just say that they're COVID infected, and it would show up on their cell phone. There'd be no test to see if they were COVID infected.
Right.
The fact that you were trying to get money out of an ATM or out of a bank, it would come up that you're COVID infected. You have to go back to your house and stay there. You'll be arrested.
Yeah, and so, but now you have the possibility of central bank digital currencies coming into the market because they are not able to prop this economy with traditional markets. So more of that. Jacob, I did want to finish probably our last subject for catching up. It's what's going on in Pakistan. You mentioned that there were several elections that are going to be really, really telling this year, 2024, not only the American one, the British one. But let's talk about the Pakistan one, because that is the 5th largest population in the world with nuclear weapons. In between Russia and India, play a major role for the Chinese Belt Initiative. And they just had their election, and it was a disaster. I mean, we're talking about supposedly 35 people were killed. Mayhem, cell service was suspended. Imran Khan is still in prison, as their former prime minister. It's a mess, but especially in the Punjab area. But walk us through this. The U.S. had a lot of interest in Pakistan, but now the Punjab region is a big problem there. Walk us through this, what's going on in Pakistan.
The westernized politicians who would give at least some assent to democratic principles. Imam Khan, was a cricket player and a businessman, but he was a cricket player, very
famous. Yeah.
Famous in England and Great Britain. Okay. He's in jail. It's a rigged election. We don't want you to run. We're putting you in jail. Okay. But this goes back, if you understand the genesis of it, it goes back to when they killed Bhutto's daughter.
Mm.
She was a woman who was westernized, intelligent, educated, and understood economic as well as political realities, and she was secretly friendly to the Israelis. She was murdered. She was murdered. The way Indira Gandhi was murdered, she was murdered in Pakistan. They didn't want the Islamic mentality. The fundamentalists didn't want a woman. They didn't want somebody who was westernized. They didn't want somebody who had any kind of liberal or progressive ideas by their standards of progressivism, not the Western view of it. They didn't want that. So you've already had all of these makings and mechanisms in Pakistan, sociologically and politically anyway, for something like this to happen. But the economy is in such terrible shape. The economy is in such terrible shape. It is irrelevant who wins the election. Nobody can stop what's happening.
Mm.
Can we look at the map, please? Just for a minute. Can we bring it up?
Yeah, it's up.
If you see there Amritsar in the Punjab, and if you look to the left, which would be the west of Amritsar, you'll see Lahore, Pakistan, with the border in the middle between India, the Punjab, and Pakistan. Okay, Pakistan's Punjab. That's where I just was. That's where Moriel's base is in the Punjab. So I just was. I was right on the border looking into Pakistan. It is a place of great conflict, not only of the border dispute itself, that goes back to the time of Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by fundamentalist Hindus because he gave part of that land, the Punjab, to Pakistan, to the Muslims, and he was assassinated by other Hindus for doing it. It's always been militarily tense anyway, a point of confrontation. There have been approximately 5 to 6 border wars between India and Pakistan already, before they had nuclear weapons. Now they are both nuclearly armed. So if you have the BJP, if you have fundamentalist Hindus who have nuclear weapons and who believe in reincarnation, okay? And if you have Pakistani fundamentalist Muslims with nuclear weapons who believe in shahadi, that if you die in a jihad, you will get 72 virgins. So they have an incentive to die in a war. These are people with nuclear weapons now. This is something I've been warning about for some time. They are not like the Congress Party in India, or they're not like Imran Khan or Bhutto's daughter. They're not people that are reasonable and sensible. They're crazy people with their finger on the button, with extremist religious views of having an incentive to die in a war. I'll be reincarnated as a Brahmin, or I'll get my 72 virgins. It's very dangerous for people like this to be nuclearly armed. The situation is very precarious. Now let's look at that map again. If you look to the left, you'll see something that says federal tribal area. That is Waziristan. Those people do not recognize any border. Afghanistan, Pakistan, it doesn't matter. They're tribal people, and they're all semi-migratory. They'll move from one side of the border to the other. That is where the Taliban had a big base of support, and it is where bin Laden escaped from Afghanistan into Pakistan. Those people are not even controlled or ruled.
Wow.
By the Pakistan government. Okay, they're totally tribal. They're not even. I've only flown over it in an airplane. I've not been. My feet have not been on the ground in Waziristan, but I've certainly flown over it. Now, if you look up on top of the map where it says Islamabad, draw a line from next to Islamabad, direct south, not into India, the Punjab, but into continuing inside Pakistan to the south. The Belt and Road Initiative of China. Pakistan is in debt up to its eyeballs to China. But there's more to it than that. China can be choked off economically and not have access to ports in Africa or Europe or the Middle East if India, the United States, Great Britain, or Australia close off the Malacca Straits. That's all they've got, and it will be easy to close off the Malacca Straits. Okay, what China is trying to do in the South China Sea, have a choke-off point. A natural choke-off point exists. You've got Singapore, you've got India, you've got the USA, you've got the Royal Navy, the British, and you've got the Australians. China is very vulnerable. So they want the port of Karachi on the Indian Ocean in Pakistan, okay, with a belt and railroads going north through Pakistan side of the Punjab, near Lahore, going north towards Islamabad, and then from there north into China. Okay, they want a way to circumvent the Malacca Straits. They want control of the port of Karachi. Now, they already did that in Ceylon, in Sri Lanka. They said, you can't pay us back the money you owe us. You give us the port for 99 years, and we're going to use it as we want in lieu of payment. Naval base. And they have a naval base in Djibouti as well, in Africa.
Djibouti. That's right.
Yeah, Africa. Okay, and we're going to use it for our own shipping and trade. If Pakistan's economy collapses, China can make those kinds of demands.
Ooh.
And you will have a Chinese-controlled port in Pakistan with a road and rail link to China through Pakistan. The whole area is very precarious. It is not just Pakistan. It is not just Pakistan and India. It is not just Pakistan, India, and Afghanistan. It is Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and China. It is a geopolitical quagmire. Add to that nuclear armament.
Yeah, exactly.
And rigged elections, of course.
Yeah, the result of the provincial ones, the assembly election in Punjab, which is, you can kind of make a case that it's like California for the Pakistan government, the largest populous area and the most industrious populous area of Pakistan. They just had a terrible election. There was so much corruption. They didn't even let some of Khan's supporters vote, or even some of their some of the other ones who were in support of Khan, they couldn't even run as independents. So violence has erupted in Punjab area. Many feel like it could go into the Punjab area of India, which is going to be a border mess right there. But Jacob, what does it mean for? I mean, to those who are watching, and this is a big problem for Moriel in a sense of where the base is and all that, and some of the persecution that goes on there.
One more dimension to the problem that could affect Moriel. The inhabitants of the Indian Punjab, where Amritsar is, that is not Hindu. There are some Hindus. It is Sikh.
Oh, yes, you're right.
And you have radical Sikhs, the Akali Dal. Sikhs are generally more moderate.
Yeah, I was going to say they're more peaceful.
Yeah, because Sikhism is like monotheistic Hinduism. Monotheistic Hinduism, I suppose. That would be the closest I could describe it in a nutshell. And they don't generally have a problem with Christians in England or America or Canada. They do have problems with Christians in India because a number of Sikhs have become Christians. But
amen,
there is a centuries-old hatred between Pakistani Muslims and Sikhs. The Sikhs, as part of their religion, have to carry a dagger, like the Scottish call it a skidoo, a knife that they wear under the kilt on their ankle. Well, the Sikhs have something like that. They've got to carry this knife as part of their religion because of you have to be ready to fight the Muslim day or night.
Incredible.
Now, something else on the other side, there have already been exchanges of fire between, it's not on the map, but it'll be, if it was, it will be on the lower left corner of the map, the border between Iran and Pakistan, you've already had exchanges of fire, military fire, between Pakistan and Iran, both Muslim. Why? If you see Baluchistan on the map, those are not Persians. Those are not ethnic Iranians. They're Iranian nationality, but they're ethnically different people. The Sunni-Shia conflict is not just on the west side between Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Iran. The Sunni-Shia conflict is also on the east side between the Sunnis of Pakistan and the Shias of Iran. It happened on both sides. People in the West, Europe, America, they may be aware of the Sunni Shia conflict in the Persian Gulf between Iran
with the Saudis,
Saudi and the Emirates, whatever. But then in Iraq, there's the conflict.
In Iraq and Iran, yeah.
Right. But they're not as aware of the fact that there is the same kind of conflict between Sunni and Shia Muslims on the east. You put the whole thing together, you couldn't concoct a bigger mess.
Oh, it is a powder keg that it of course, Jake, I know you don't want to talk too much about it, but you know, you've been targeted and persecution and things like that. So we have to have a lot of prayer for you, a lot of prayer for believers there. It is no joke.
I went out for a chicken korma and I saw a couple of wanted posters on the wall with pictures of me and Mark Jackson.
And I know you make light of it and stuff, but we definitely need to pray for you and for Mark and for the believers there.
Hey, the cops are looking for us. We got out of there. But I mean, our people are there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That
Cops took our people in. So we need prayer for India. Yes.
Yeah, and this is something you don't take lightly at all. This is something you've been in prayer for, and you've been thinking through, and it's now with this event going on in Pakistan, in the Punjab area, and how it's spill over into the Indian side
easily.
And you have an election in India coming up in April. Yeah, with in India. I don't know if Modi's going to be
BJP. Modi's trying to keep power. The BJP's trying to keep power.
And that's going to influence what's going on in Punjab. Influences, of course, that
and the
area.
BJP are not friends of Christians either.
Not at all. Not at all. So it is a powder keg. And Jacob, you described it well. You know, these are the things, the birth pangs of the last days, and more of that is coming. You're going to do a study on Revelation 6, but also you have the birth pangs, you have the persecution, you have war looming. This is stuff to make you crazy and worried, but.
I've been all over the place, and I don't think I've seen a more serious powder keg than I have in the Punjab. Potentially.
Yeah. And so, and a lot of Christians may not be aware of it. So you're aware of it here. Let's pray for them. Let's pray for the believers there. Let's pray for the work of Moriel within that area. And, it can make you crazy, Jacob. But as we finish the episode here, we move on to Backstage. How does a Christian approach this in their own life without going insane?
We'll be hearing of wars and rumors of wars, but the end is not yet. And then they will persecute you. Jesus told us these things. Everything's right on schedule.
Yeah, it's easy, and being in California, you got good weather, although it's been rainy, but it's been sunny too. And you can think that the world is not like that because the weather are good, avocado's good, and you got In-N-Out Burger, and you think the world is fine, and you think, well, it gets bad, the Lord's going to get us out of here. But you can't imagine what the believers and the rest of the world go through.
Yeah, but just look at it. When the corrupt Justice Department and the corrupt Treasury Department take a law and a government mechanism designed to stop money laundering of people who traffic in illegal drugs, and are using it to build a database about their political enemies that includes Christians who get on the index, the watch list, because they bought a Bible.
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
In the same way.
Yeah. I had a friend who's not from the States, but he lives here. He says, the believer never thought the United States would ever do this. And he had to change his mind about some eschatology that he was faulty thinking, but he realized that a lot of things that people have told him, are not true.
Just look at how many hotels will no longer have a Gideon's Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes a statement.
The banning of the Bible, and they're gonna basically target those who bought it and those who use it. So, folks, we're just telling you, get a Bible, memorize it, put it in your heart, because that's the best place to put it.
Yeah.
Best place to put it. All right. Well, we're coming down to the end of catching up. We're going to be switching over to Backstage. We're going to be taking. We got some questions. So we got questions for Jacob. We're backloaded on those questions. We're going to try to make a dent into them, but we so much appreciate you sending those questions because they're so important to us to hear from you. That means you're watching, you're praying, your intent is to be alert. And that's what we desire for disciples of Jesus, to be like that, to be in prayer and to be active in serving the Lord and serving other believers as well in evangelism and discipleship and taking care of the poor and taking care of the orphans and visiting widows. That's what the scripture calls us to do. And that's what we endeavor to do here. You get a lot of information, but hopefully you can put it in the right approach is to put it into action, not to be hearers only, but doers as well. If you want more information, go to memorial.org, how to get involved, how to pray, how to support the work of the Lord in different areas. If you want to know more about what's going on in Moriel in India, in the Punjab area, you can go. David, is that on the website? About the work there in India?
Got to take some of it down for security reasons.
For security reasons, yeah. But yeah, some of it. But you know a little bit about there. We can't share too much information, but if you want to know how to pray and how to pray for that work there, and pray for Mark, and pray for Jacob, and pray for the believers there, go to Memorial.org.
Marco, in the quarterly.
Yeah.
Mark,
it's also going to be on the quarterly.
Mark quarterly has something. So
Mark is going to have something there. So yeah, very important, very, very important. But don't forget, there are believers everywhere that the Lord has put us in contact with, not only in Asia, but in the Middle East, as well as here in the Punjab area in India, that need your prayers, need your support. So please keep them in prayer and support them as the Lord leads you to do. But we're just letting you guys know what's going on in Pakistan. And fortunately, Jacob was able to be there. He can give us, foot on the ground view of what's going on there. But also, it's risky. It's not without its risk. So God bless you guys. We will be going on to Backstage and answering some great questions. We praise the Lord for you guys who are watching live, and jump over from YouTube and Facebook Live. Join us on Rumble, Memorial.tv, and the other platforms. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Just remind our friends, please, Moriel itinerary. Just Google Moriel itinerary. You'll find the meetings in Texas, Florida, Tennessee, California, and again in New York and Baltimore and in Britain. And then soon, before long, the New Zealand, Australia, Singapore meetings and so forth will be posted, and Hawaii as well. So Moriel.org, go on to the itinerary page, or you can just Google Moriel itinerary.
Amen. Yeah. Praise the Lord. Well, Jacob's busy, so pray for him, and the big target on his back, and the Lord's got him, though. The Lord protects him and keeps him, even though there are people probably that don't want him to preach anymore. So let's just keep praying. God bless you guys. All right. Welcome to Backstage, the part of the program that our tech overlords do not want us to talk about, and especially Jacob and David and Jay and Davey, myself. They want to censor us. They want to keep us off so that we won't continue to preach in God's word and make disciples and keep people alert on what's going on in the world. And hopefully some of the topics that we brought to you guys on catching up were informant, were very important, because we believe these are the things that Jesus told us to be aware and watch out for these things. We talked about other subjects as well. Last week we had Sandy, and it was magnificent, talking about Alistair Begg and some of the false teachings that are going on, not just with them, but other things that let's say, put it this way, other nefarious characters that, such as Mike Bickle, that have brought on to the body of Christ. And then we talked about other things as well. We talked about preterism a couple of weeks ago, and that was great. So we do cover quite a bit of subjects, from issues in the church, to issues in culture, to issues in politics and war and rumors of wars. But we also answered your question. So Jacob Prash, do you guys think Iran and Pakistan will engage in a full-blown conflict?
Iran versus Pakistan?
Yes.
I think there will be ongoing border tensions.
Okay.
Pakistan cannot economically or strategically fight on two fronts at the same time. It has to watch India and it has to watch Iran.
Quite a bit of stuff.
The
Yeah.
other factor is China is in bed to a degree with both Iran and Pakistan.
Oh man.
So China will try to broker some kind of will try to prevent it from becoming a full-blown conflict.
Okay, very good. Besides Iran, who are other Shia Muslim countries?
You have a large Shia Islamic population in eastern Saudi Arabia. Eastern Saudi Arabia, the most is Sunni, but in eastern Saudi Arabia, the Shias, which is where the oil is.
Ooh.
Secondly, along the Gulf. Secondly, southern Iraq has a lot of Shias. Southern Lebanon, Hezbollah.
Hezbollah, yeah, that's right.
Hezbollah are Shia. There are also sects of Shia, one of whom that's important in the world now are the Alawites. The Alawites are the sect of Islam, and that is the religion of Assad, the Assad family in
Syria.
Yeah. In Syria. So there's a sect of Shias in Syria, but you're mainly talking about Lebanon, you're mainly talking about southern Iraq, you're mainly talking about eastern Saudi Arabia, and you're certainly talking about Iran. Iran.
No small contingency. That's no small contingency.
No. Outside of that, there will be smaller numbers, with one exception. Thanks to George Bush, you have a significant number of Shia Muslims in Minnesota.
Oh, Somali, yeah.
Not the Somalians.
They're Iranians.
Iraqis.
Oh, Iraqis. Okay.
Thanks to George Bush. George Bush did everything he could to import as many Muslims into America as he could, and that includes a number of Shia Muslims. Their population center is in Minnesota, but
that's going to be interesting with the Somalians there, Muslim Somalians. Jacob, do you believe that China would release disease X on the world, and how would that fit into last day's prophecy? Is it possible, since we know that they had mRNA shots already developed, do you believe this time they will need the vax?
Concerning China itself, desperate people do desperate things. The Chinese Party and Japan will do anything that they see is within their interest to retain power and to advance the interest of China outside of China. The answer is they would have no qualms about doing it. The only thing is, would there be ramifications, and would it hurt them domestically? Like the Wuhan virus we call COVID, the Wuhan virus hurt them internally. At first, by the lockdowns, they contained the amount of infection. There were much more infection in Western countries. Once they were forced economically to ease the lockdowns, you couldn't cremate the corpses fast enough. It was out of control. So if they have an incentive not to do it, it would be for fear it would hurt their own already damaged economy. That's the thing that would stop it. What really also has to be taken into account is Fauci knew about the Wuhan virus. He was involved. Okay. Yeah. He lied. He misled. You can't trust the World Health Organization. You can no longer trust the National Institute of Health. You cannot trust the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. These things have all been turned into political organs, all of them. And you've got that sick freak that Richard Levine calls himself racial, who Biden promoted to a 4-star admiral. The transgender, that's the deputy secretary of health. I mean, the Surgeon General is another one.
Yeah, he wants Fauci's job. He wants Fauci's
job. Correct. I am as afraid of our own corrupt government and the World Health Organization and the governments of Europe. And the Schwab slobs, obviously, the globalists. I'm as afraid of those people as I am of China.
Very good, Jacob. Jacob, do we agree that digital currency will circumvent First, Second, and Fourth Amendment in the constitutions? Your thoughts?
It is possible. It is possible. I don't know about the Second Amendment, but certainly they can search for owning a currency, a fiat currency that's not,
Oh, yeah. Like
Oh,
gold, right? Yeah, like what they did with gold.
you know, search and seizure without warrant. Yes, I
Oh.
believe they can do that. Let's not forget something. A true enemy of a free market economy and an enemy of ideological Americanism was Franklin Roosevelt. He
Ooh.
outlawed the possession of gold.
Yeah.
So
Confiscated it. Yeah.
yeah, confiscated. So don't think government would not do that again with paper money or coinage. Don't think they wouldn't do it. Now,
Another Democrat.
a lot of people see digital currency as, they wrongly interpret digital currency as Revelation 13.
Right. Right.
I don't say digital currency is not a step on the ladder to Revelation 13, but Revelation 13 is about a right, a license to buy and sell, to engage in commerce. It does not speak of the currency itself directly. It speaks to the right to engage in commerce. I've tried to explain this before. In Ephesus, ancient Ephesus, 1st century, you had the market called the Agora, and there was a promenade into the Agora and a gate, and it said in Greek, it said, Caesar Huios Theos, Caesar, son of God.
Hmm.
The deified emperor was called the Son of God. The Christians thought that Jesus was the Son of God, and you had to go through this gate and acknowledge the emperor as a deity and as the Son of God to enter the market to buy and sell, the Agora, okay? Christians wouldn't do it. They tied Christians to poles on either side of the promenade inside the gate and set them alight, and they used them as human lamps. Burned them alive at the stake as human lamps to illuminate the path into the market for evening, for night trading. That foreshadows is a better foreshadowing of what will happen in Revelation 13. It's not about the currency itself primarily. That's a related factor, but it will be about the right to engage in commerce, to buy or sell.
Yeah.
You have the commerce. I remember during the COVID in Israel, this really troubled me, and it was Israel. Unless you have the jab, you couldn't get this ID button that says you've been inoculated with COVID. They would not allow you into a supermarket or a shopping mall without it.
Mm.
You know, the security guards who were there at every shopping mall are there to look for terror and weapons and things like this. Okay, they screen for that stuff. Now they were screening for people to buy or sell to commit shopping.
Yeah.
Okay, you could go to what was known as a Macaulay, a little neighborhood grocery shop. You could do that, but you couldn't go into the department stores. You couldn't go into the supermarkets. You couldn't go into the shopping malls without it. That is more like what it's going to be like. I'm not saying digital currency does not come into play as a factor in arriving at Revelation 13, but it's not the main factor, or it's not the essence of what Revelation 13 is talking about.
Very good. All right, Jacob. Thank you. If a preacher says they worship God the Father only, should one stay at that church?
No.
Oh,
Very good.
oh,
Get out. All right. Will the first Gog and Magog war happen before Jesus Christ comes back, Jacob?
First of all, you have to decide if you believe there's one Gog and Magog wars, or if there are two Gog and Magog wars. That's the first thing you have to decide. Is it only the one at the end of Revelation and at the end of the millennium in Revelation 20, or do you believe there's another one that prefigures it? There are arguments both ways, okay? The main one, however, must be the one at the end of the millennium, because that's the one the New Testament speaks about. Second thing you have to decide is, are you one of the people who believes that Gog and Magog are concurrent with the Battle of Armageddon, or the same thing as the Battle of Armageddon and the Battle of Jehoshaphat, and or the Battle of Jehoshaphat, Valley of Jehoshaphat, or not? Is it something separate? It's a complicated situation. I have tapes addressing it, but I couldn't give you a nut.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I think, but to explain why I think that way, I'd have to refer you to the teachings we've done on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's refer them to the teaching on it. If we can pull those up, Davey, at some point, and maybe send them the link to that person, that would be great. Yeah, on the
Do you
main.
know what those are, Jacob? Can you name a couple of them?
One was on Gog and Magog.
Yeah, I think it's called Gog and Magog. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any others? You know?
It's mentioned on a couple of other ones. Yes.
Okay.
Will it make a difference at this point who is elected? If there is one or if there's one as before, Trump wasn't allowed to do too much.
Trump is the closest thing to a non-establishment president we've ever had. All the other ones are corrupt and owned by the establishment. What they do is going to be limited by the establishment. The establishment includes the international banking establishment.
That's right.
Okay, so one of the reasons the establishment hates Trump so much is he was not a member of the establishment. That's why they hate him so much. He's not part of the swamp. He's not part of the establishment.
That's right.
They want to ruin him financially. They want to ruin him by legal means. They want to ruin him by any means possible. They'll ignore the fact record low Afro-American unemployment, prison reform for nonviolent criminals that benefited Afro-Americans disproportionately, an increase in the average family income of Black Americans of $1,000 in his first 11 months of office, after it declined by $900 a year. Sorry, not a month, a year. $900 a year. It declined under Barack Obama. After 2 terms of Obama, it went down by 900. Under Bush, it went up by 1,000 just in his first 11 months. It was obviously, by any objective metric, by any objective financial standard or other standard, he was the best president that the Black people have ever had in the 21st century. He was the best one. He was the best for the Blacks. Economically, he did the most for Blacks, okay? Yet they hate him. They're told he's a racist, and so they'll believe it because that's what they're told. That's what they're told to believe. What you have here is the same as you had under slavery. The white plantation owners could vote 60% of their Black slaves, who they deemed to be 3/5 of a human being, for the candidate of their choice. Blacks would vote for who they're told to vote for. Okay, well, that was the Democratic Party of the American South, and they're doing the same thing. Blacks will vote for who they're told to vote for. That's what they bank on. So if anybody looked at the facts, they would say, well, it's in our interest to vote for Donald Trump. No, we'll tell you who to vote for. He's a racist. And there's enough stupid people, both white and Black, they will listen to Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. They will listen to Whoopi Goldberg. They'll listen to Joy Reid. They'll listen to Al Sharpton. They'll listen to Don Lemon. They'll listen to any liar, any useful idiot, any of the true Uncle Toms, if you want to use the term. The real term would be Sambos. They'll listen to them. They'll listen to them instead of to the truth.
LeBron James, yeah.
So that's the way it is. They hate him because he was not a member of the swamp and he tried to drain it. You just look at them. They allowed riots. They would not stop the riots in the West Coast, in Oregon and Seattle. They let these riots happen for weeks and weeks and weeks. See what happens if Trump's the president?
Yep.
Now, vote for a Democrat, the riots will stop. You want the riots to stop, though. This is how desperate and how corrupt and evil these people are.
They'll burn the city down. They'll burn the nation down. Yes.
Of course.
By
Jacob,
starting in their own neighborhood.
Yes.
that's right. Burn their own ones. Jacob, if it's appointed for a man to die once and then to judgment, then those who are raptured will not have ever died.
The text is clear. We shall not all sleep. There will be people like Enoch and like Elijah who never died. There will be.
But isn't that God's prerogative, Jacob, to overrule death? I mean, he took the sting out of it.
Yes, of course he can.
It's an enemy.
Yes.
And I think the context, I think in Hebrews 9:27, it's speaking of Jesus' death. Jesus' death specifically. It applies to mankind because we all, we all have the curse of death, but it's specifically
If it
Jesus.
applies, it is the general truth of mankind. Okay. It is the general truth of mankind.
That's right. All right. Jacob, if we follow scriptures, Israel's lands will be from the Nile in Egypt into the Euphrates River. Israel will be really big and will have some Arab lands. What happened?
This will be like the reign of King David. We have a teaching series that's it was filmed on video at the time, but I believe it is on the Moriel website. You can watch the teachings of the millennium. The reign of David extended to the Euphrates at one point, and then came down through Medibah, what is today Jordan, and it extended to the Brook of Egypt, which was probably at least the Wadi El Arish. Whether it's the Nile is debated, but certainly it'd be at least the Wadi El Arish. The reign of David and Solomon will tell you the dimensions that Israel is going to consist of geographically during the millennium. Yes, it will. Now remember, the Arab nations were not Arab at that time. The Arabs came from Arabia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were.
Yeah,
well, you had
Jordan and Iraq and these places, they were not, and Lebanon and Syria, they were not Arab countries then.
That's right. That's right. Jacob, have you seen Freedom to Fascism by the late director Aaron Russo?
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Okay. Is China likely to be the 200 million army from the East? Book of Revelation seems to be so near now.
Some people say that, but others make the argument it could be the huge Islamic populations of Central Asia.
That's very true. Cannot outrule that. Any possibility the 10 kings are the same 10 in Psalms 83?
Many people, like Bill Salas, believe they relate. I believe he believes that. Is there a possibility of it? I think they relate, yes. But to say it's them, there's too much argumentation they could be European. Those kings in that psalm, none of them are European. And obviously, you got the Antichrist and false prophet. It comes from the sea, okay? From the nations of the Mediterranean. Okay, so that is the problem with it, okay?
Very good. Jacob, regarding BRICS, its membership is now 10 nations, and Saudi Arabia will join it this week. I don't know if that's true, but I'll take the word for it. I'm not sure, but maybe. Is this a possible contender for Daniel in the 10 kings or kingdoms being set up as the toes? Now that Saudi Arabia joins the BRICS, it is now 10 members, and we're looking for the possibility of Daniel regarding the 10 kings or kingdoms, ?
I do not question that there could be a prophetic significance to BRICS. I don't question that. Saudi Arabia is in it and so forth, and Iran. But what I do question is this. The toes are of the feet. The feet are of the legs. The legs are absolutely the eastern and western halves of the Roman Empire, which became the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire. The legs of the Roman Empire, and the feet come back. And the toes are on the feet of the iron and the clay. So therefore, I do not think so, because there's no European country in BRICS.
Very good. Jacob, you ever come to Missouri?
I've been to Missouri, but I don't think I've ever spoken there.
Somebody wants you there. Yeah, think about Jacob coming to Missouri, ?
I've been to Excelsior Springs, Missouri, because Larry Thomas lived there.
Oh, yeah.
I went to his funeral.
Yeah.
I'd flown through the airport in St. Louis when TWA still existed. It was
wow.
and I used to fly TWA a lot. So I know the airport. But I've never been down to the Blueberry Cafe, the place that Chuck Berry owned, or I've never.
Or Branson, right? Branson.
I don't care
I was
about
say live from Branson, Jacob Brash.
Oh yeah, I have been to Springfield, Missouri. And
okay.
in southwestern Missouri, I have been there.
All right. Well, if somebody's watching from Missouri, yeah, you want Jacob to come, please get a hold of us and contact. Maybe there's a church or ministry there.
Yes.
It's on our list to visit for fellowship drives, but we're
Yeah.
working on them.
We're working on it. So whoever sent the question, please, if you're watching, just maybe you can send a message and let us know where you are in Missouri, and we'll keep in touch and contact. We're always open to fellowship.
Walk out to the Anheuser-Busch Brewery.
According to Nelson Walters, in Isaiah 63, 1-6, Jesus Christ will have a pre-rapture appearance and destroy many nations alone, thus having a blood-stained garment. Jacob, what's your take on it?
On Isaiah 63?
Yeah. I'm not sure who Nelson Walter is, but it may be.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. But I guess that's the question.
He's a teacher on YouTube.
Oh, he's on YouTube. Okay. He's on YouTube. Okay. He says that Jesus will have a pre-rapture appearance to destroy some nations, and then he would have a blood-stained garment.
Familiar with the chapter, basically. Let me just see. This is about God's revenge on nations.
Yes.
And who's this that comes from Edom and Basra? The one I do not think that we can say that this is pre-rapture. Because you see where it says Basra? Now, this is the same passage that talks about send the tribute lamb. Basra is the area of Petra, okay? Petra. It's where Mount Seir is. Christ's feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. That's where his terrestrial return will be, terrestrially on the Mount of Olives. But he comes in the air the first time for the rapture, okay? There will be a flight of Jews fleeing the Antichrist into the area of Basra. Now, that is not Basra in Iraq. This is a different Basra. It is in Jordan. It is in Jordan today, near a place called Faran. Who's this who comes from Edom? The garment's blowing, the one who's majestic, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, when Jesus comes back, he makes war against these nations, okay? He makes war against these nations, okay? I do not know if you can say that that is a pre-rapture event. I don't believe it is a pre-rapture event.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jacob. Jacob, what is Carter Cullen from New York Times Square Church? Is he a real teacher as far as providing sound doctrine, or is he to be avoided?
I've never been a major fan of his, and I'm certainly not a fan of his singing. I don't think he's a very good gospel singer, but I have heard him preach. When David Wilkerson was there, it was different. When David Wilkerson left, departed, Times Square Church as it was departed with him. You've got this thing of women pastors now. You've got a horrible man who basically I consider him to be somebody who hijacked the pulpit of Martin Lloyd-Jones in London, although he's American. He lives in Key Largo, Florida now. Well, what is his name? I know him. I've met him. I don't know him well, but I have met him. Anyway, he is a he's somebody who was a partner of Paul Cain from the Kansas City Falls Prophets.
Oh,
he partnered with Paul Cain. R.W. confusing him with somebody. Oh boy, David, maybe you're right. I am losing it.
I was talking.
Maybe we can look it up. Davey, can you look up who pastors Martin Lloyd-Jones' old church?
Former pastor of Martin Lloyd-Jones's church.
Yeah.
Well, while we're looking that up, can he answer another one there, Marco?
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Back to it.
You want to hold on to that one, Jacob?
Okay, let them look it up and I'll get back to you.
All right. Do you know of any reputable Bible teachers who can expound from the original Greek or Hebrew who have content online?
Yeah,
We
there
do.
are. There are. But they don't tend to do it verse by verse from the original languages. They may do it sometimes, but there are expositors who do read Greek and Hebrew and who do take the original languages into account. For sure there are. For sure there are. There's a number of them. But if you mean translating each word or each verse from the Greek or Hebrew, that is not something that's popularly done.
Yeah. It says to extensively expound from the Greek and Hebrew.
No,
Is
because
it actually worth it, Jacob, to do that?
we've done it. We've done it certain times.
Yeah, on Psalm 23, stuff like
I did
but
Psalm 23. I did it from a passage in Timothy where I translated every word and with the grammar. But it takes so long to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is.
but,
It is.
but there's so much of it's already translated and everything, and there's very few things that would
Yeah.
Well,
really
is it
vital.
RT Kendall, Jacob?
R.T. Kendall, that was it.
Yeah.
Horrible man. Horrible man. That's who's in Times Square Church now, among others.
Oh, really?
That place has gone down the sewer since David Wilkerson went to be with the Lord. That place has gone down the sewer.
Yeah.
When David Wilkerson departed, Times Square Church departed with him. And Conlon Carter bears much, if not the lion's share of the responsibility.
Jacob, can you recite the Aaronic benediction in Hebrew?
Yes.
Did it yesterday, actually, Marco.
All right, praise God.
We prayed for our friends. Yeah.
Amen.
They want me to do it? They want me to do it?
Let's do it. Let's close it out with that after this question. What are the chances for the red heifer sacrifice here in 2024?
I can't put a time on it. There are red heifers now, and they would have to be sacrificed for any kind of reconstruction and rededication of the rebuilt temple. But to say it's going to happen in this year, that's just hyper speculative. I couldn't go there.
All right, Jacob, Lurie's Children's Hospital in Chicago, Pennsylvania courthouse, and public transit were all compromised by cyber attacks this week. China, or is it nothing to watch?
The most dangerous cyber attacks tend to come from China. Russia has done it. Russia has done it. But with Russia, there's some kind of political or strategic motive. China will do it for a variety of reasons, including economic motivation. So the answer is, when I see a cyber attack, I'm looking, the first suspect will be China. Russia, it depends.
North Korea.
Russia will be the second. North Korea can do on a much lower level. They would not have the expertise that China and Russia have to do it. Absolutely not. One of the dangers is, and one of the things I'm against, is, again, the American government is stupidly and continues to allow Chinese postgraduate students to go to Berkeley, to go to Caltech, to go to MIT. Many of these people already have postgraduate degrees from China. They're not coming to learn anything except how to steal American technology.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right.
Yeah, they just had that guy that stole the information that showed how to. It was so big, it had to deal with the nuclear spotting. I forgot. I'm so sorry. Just took the patents and everything with them.
Oh goodness!
Janet Reno was a disaster. I think she was a lesbian, but she was a disaster as a attorney general for what she let the Chinese get away with.
Yeah, under Clinton. That's right, under Clinton. Well,
but I am against allowing Chinese students to come to the United States for postgraduate education. They should not be allowed to go to Wharton or business school. They should not be allowed to go to any of the high-tech institutions. They should not be allowed to come for postgraduate studies to the United States.
We gave all college education to the Iranian students, and they're getting ready to make a bomb.
Yeah. Yes. So that's all the questions we have. We'll take a few of them for next time. And we'll finish up the part of the backstage and questions with Jacob doing the Aaronic benediction in Hebrew. Somebody asked for that. So Jacob, you have the final word and you have the Aaronic benediction.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. World events are unfolding very quickly. Prayer has never been more important. And getting oil in our lamps has never been more important. It is getting darker and the oil is getting harder to come by. That is my exhortation. But of course we know, as always, lift up your head, your redemption draws near.
Amen.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. So you shall bless the sons of Israel, and then I will bless them. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'yechunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yaseh lecha shalom. B'shem Yeshua HaMashiach, in the name of the Lord Jesus the Messiah, shalom.
Amen. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you so much. And you did it in Texas, and you're doing it here to all those who are watching worldwide. So thank you so much. God bless you, dear brother. And you have a wonderful, wonderful meetings this weekend, and with Jay and David and Mia and all the believers that are there. And those who are watching, those who stayed up with us, good evening, good morning to Australia, to New Zealand. As you guys close out in the UK and the rest of Europe, we bless you, and we send blessings in the name of the Lord. And keep preaching Jesus. He's coming soon. We'll see you soon. God bless you guys.
Right.
Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan to India to Africa and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.